Welcome back to another week with your favorite sisters, Jackie and Athina, and the Sisters Show. Tomorrow is a very important day to me because it actually is the 1 year anniversary since my husband and I and our 4 sons, we left all of our security, all of our stability, all of our income, and sold everything we owned to follow our dreams and move to an island in the Florida Keys.
Okay, and it's also not just the 1 year anniversary of you picking up and moving. It's the 1 year anniversary of, can you guess?
No.
It's a
You're
1 year
killing me,
anniversary.
and it's Frozen.
It's the 1 year anniversary of where the podcast was birthed.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
What it's
Wow, she's a little slow today, and it's not just the Wi-Fi. Our podcast was actually birthed on that 18 to 19-hour death ride that we took together.
Yeah.
That's so important that you brought that up.
It is. So here we are, full circle 1 year later.
Full circle moment.
So I think that this marks such an important, I would say probably one of the most important days of your life. Would you say so?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's up there with, having all of my kids, and then I would say probably marriage.
So I think that this move symbolized so much more than just picking up and moving your entire family and life to another state, but it actually represented that transition of moving from your stable, secure life into what your version of true happiness and what a truly happy family and home life looks like.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah. So coming up on this 1 year date, what is the first emotion that comes to your mind when you look back on this past year?
I'm proud. I'm going to cry on this podcast episode. I can feel it already. And there she goes again. Yeah, no, I'm really proud. I'm really, really proud. I'm proud of me. I'm proud of Sean, my husband. I'm proud of our sons. I'm getting choked up, but what we did is not something that the average family could do. And I've always prided myself on the core of us being so tight that it didn't matter where we lived. It didn't matter if we lived on the moon. It doesn't matter if you live in a trailer. It doesn't matter if you live in a hut, a tent, a villa, a mansion, that we bring that strength and that core belief in God and in what's meant for us with us. And so, yeah, I think the only word to describe as far as what first comes to my mind is I'm just so fucking proud. I'm so proud of us.
You should be. You should be so proud. I think it's a very difficult decision, and now looking back, you know why it happened, but that's something that when you're presented with it, I feel it's not an easy thing to just pick up and decide to do that. When you were originally presented with the opportunity that you had the option to move your entire family to the Keys, what was the first thing that went through your brain? Because I know it was something that you kind of had been speaking into existence for a little while, but you didn't know how it was going to come into fruition in your life. So what did you feel? And was it an easy decision for you? Because I think people assume that because you work from home and the kids do school from home, and it's just like, oh yeah, I can pick up and leave. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so it was a long time in the making getting us to a place where, these two 30-something-year-old parents of 4 would get to be like, oh no, we're doing this. So I would say this was probably almost a decade in the making. It probably goes back to when my father-in-law passed away, unfortunately, and today's actually the year of his anniversary of his death. And he was a huge part of my husband's life, and the business that my husband was a part of, it was a family business. And so for the majority of our marriage, we built our whole nucleus, our family, around that business. And so, you've heard me say, I was barefoot in pregnant all of my 20s. Like I was literally on an episode of like Little House on the Prairie with the whole situation. I mean, and it was a great slow season of my life, and I would not take that back for anything. But then in my 30s, all these other passions that had always been there for me came to fruition, whether it was with social media or my photography business, my blog, just everything. And I was no longer raising these little babies anymore. And so when you say, like, it was a long time in the making, I guess. You don't just wake up one day and say, like, I'm going to just, I mean, maybe you do. Maybe some people do, but you can't really do that when you have 4 children. My marriage also had to get to a place that you can do something like that. For instance, when my husband struggled with substance abuse, or when our unit wasn't as tight as it was and the foundation was a little sandy and mucky, you can't take this kind of an opportunity. So I don't think that that's even the question you were asking me, but I think that if someone's thinking about doing something big like this, you really need to check in with yourself. You need to check in with your spouse and make sure that that unit is strong enough, because it's hard. It's really hard.
I think too, it's also like you have 4 souls depending on you. So I feel like, you know, you always hear people say like in your 20s is the time to make those like crazy decisions of like dropping out of school or changing careers a million times and doing all those things. And I am a top advocate for using your 20s as that time, because I think that, you know, if you do choose to have a family, to have kids, like by the time that time comes, it's like you don't want to have to make those big risky decisions when you have people depending on you. So I think the fact that you did that is like very, very commendable. And I think it's something most people,
and some people think I'm a dumbass for doing it.
I mean, they can think whatever they want, but here you are, and you're choosing a different type of lifestyle, and that's okay. And I think that for people my age, like, you guys need to really realize that you get one life. And if you want to choose that stable route, whether that means college or whatever it means for you in your life, that's fine. But not everyone finds that fulfilling. I don't find it fulfilling. And I know a lot of people that I know personally don't find that fulfilling. And even one of my own friends, like, she has like 6 different career options that she's interested in, and she's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, do them all. Like, you're 21, you have no one depending on you, you don't have even a partner, like, do it. Like, what's gonna happen? Like, nothing's gonna happen. So I think it's very more encouraged in your 20s, but the fact that you did it later on is really cool. And I think a lot of people don't have the guts to make a decision like that. So it's amazing that you were able to come to that conclusion after being presented with that. And I just
it comes down to this. Listen, I think that Sean and I, because I became a mom at 22, like literally 2 years from where you are right now, I was a mom. And then I was a mom again, and then I was a mom again. I mean, I was 29, pregnant with our 4th child. So we kind of are doing it backwards in regards to that, because like we are feeling that wildness in our 30s,
rush of adrenaline.
With the 4 boys, you know. And it's like, it's not that, because I hear people talk about like when you get married young, you like have to get out of your system and all this bull crap. And
I hate that.
To each their own, but you don't need to sleep with different men every night and be clubbing looking like an old toad in your 20s that doesn't have enough water to live your life.
I'm like a parent's worst nightmare of a friend for their child. Because I will encourage you to literally do the exact opposite of the stable option, because I just think, you know, do it for the plot. It's you have to, and like people joke and they're like, I'm the main character in my own story, but you are. Like, when you are on the route of choosing what things you want to do in your life, like you don't know that at 18 or 17 or 16 when you're choosing where to go, or at 20 or 24 when you're graduating. Like, you don't know. And so I think it's like there is a sense of stability, and I think that that's nice, and I'm not sitting here being like don't go that route, but I think there's people that are made differently that have that urge to like want more with their life, and they don't want just stability. Like to me stability is boring. Like I want a little more than that. So to me it was never an option that made sense for me in my journey, because I always wanted more than that. And so I think, yes, it's riskier, and I will always be that friend that will encourage you to take that risk in your life, because it's so important to developing you. And the worst that can happen is you fall flat on your face and you have to move back in with your parents, or you have to work a job you don't like for a little bit to, build yourself back up. But that's the time to fall on your face and do it. And obviously you had so much experience in just life before you made the decision. So I think that you had an actual like reason that made sense for you guys moving. And I think that that's what people don't get, is like this wasn't random. And if I know you and people were like, oh my gosh, that's so unexpected. And I'm like, you don't know Jackie. If you're saying that, I said it 1 year ago. I said, people that are so shocked at this don't actually know you, because this was nothing to be shocked about. Even you telling me a few months ago before you moved, I remember you saying like, I just feel like there's going to be a shift, and you couldn't put your finger on what it is. And it's so crazy how everything works out. And I think like life just throws those like curveballs at you, and you have to go with it. Like, I think when you are in that place of fear, like that's when you don't grow as a person, and you don't allow yourself to go through those experiences and feel how you're going to feel.
So after you said that, it's just making me think about how we can so often be our own worst enemies. And it's so much easier for us to expect the worst, because it's easier to not believe in ourselves or our ability to make these decisions. And I think that it's all rooted in a lot of, it could be trauma, it could be insecurities, but I think a lot of women aren't trusting themselves and their intuition, because even when you say to me, you're like, oh my gosh, you guys have all this experience and all this whatever. What this year has taught me is how little experience I actually have in a lot of areas when you jump out of the net. Like even as a 35-year-old woman, I was still very sheltered with my routine. And I think that routines are great and they're important. They're so important for your health and they're so important for your children. But they create these false narratives and safety nets that when you put your toe outside of it, you're like, oh shit. And I was so naive coming here. Like, let's just be honest with ourselves, Jackie and Athena. I was so naive. And I'm so glad I was, because I think that if you were to ask me if I knew the dangers that were on the other side, when I say dangers, like we're not talking about actually dying, but like the stress and the growing pains and downsizing our home and me becoming the primary provider, like all these things were so hard. And so I don't know that I would have necessarily been as like, oh yeah, because I just jumped. Me and Sean, we grabbed each other's hands and we just jumped.
So in talking about, in reference to how hard this past year has been, I think you just came out with your course about resilient as a mother. And obviously you coming out with that is related to the fact of everything that this past year has been, in terms of the good, the bad, what you've learned, what you wish you knew. But what do you feel like was one or two of the biggest challenges that you went through the past year? Because obviously you weren't expecting, you didn't know what to expect. So for someone who is maybe about to make this decision of relocating, or for someone who is faced with this huge opportunity that has a lot of risk, what do you feel like is something you weren't expecting that you wish you knew before? What do you wish someone told you before you moved that would have saved you so much pain?
People are not going to be happy for you. Your adventurous gypsy soul spirit, Jackie, is going to piss off a lot of closet haters, and they might be in your family, and they might be your best friend, and they might be a business partner, or they might be a cousin, they could be your dad, your mom. I'm talking, in examples. And so I think that is something that is unfortunate, but it's human nature that when people are faced with authenticity and anyone who's living out their purpose or following their dreams or following what they know is meant for them and their family, it ruffles feathers and it brings out a lot of hate and trolls and insecurities. But the thing that really was a whole situation for me this year was how many people were triggered by this move. Not just my husband's toxic family members. Like, we figured that was going to happen. That was already happening, right? But I'm talking about people that you think are like on your team and on your side, and that would be genuinely happy for you and your success. Because remember, what success is to me is not what it's to you, Athina.
Yeah.
For me, success was, you don't own me. You know that song? Probably not. I'm aging myself.
No.
Okay, good. Well, it's a movie, but
I think that's like really, like, as someone who is like starting their life, I feel like that's honestly really terrifying. And
okay.
I think it's like, you're like, okay, perfect.
Let's elaborate that.
So I feel like it's scary because I think about this all the time, and like I think about like my closest friends, and
Yeah.
I try not to be like naive and stupid and be like, oh yeah, like whoever I talk to is going to be in my life till I'm 80. But
Right.
I think about like people that I genuinely care about and that I love and that I want with me when I like am at that point of being so content and happy and free in my life. And I know the reality is that most people act like they're happy for you, but in reality, they never want you to do better than them. And I feel like that's kind of what you're saying, is they're happy for you until you are free in your way and are doing better than them. So I feel like I've thought about it many times, and like it is scary because when you think about the people around you in your circle, it's like, I want us all to be sitting at that table, but I know that the chances of that happening might not be what I think they are. And it does, like, it, not that it saddens me, but like it makes me just like, I want people to not be like that, and I want people to be better, and I want people to genuinely be happy and authentically be happy. And when you're not getting that vibe, it's scary because it's like, I genuinely care about you and I love your presence in my life, but if I'm getting that vibe, that's going to make me like turn my face away because I can't surround myself with that. So it's scary.
Well, that's going to be a them problem. And I know that that's like put out all the time. Like, just recently, one of my followers was
one of my fathers.
One of my fathers,
you have
because
multiple.
I have like 12. No, one of my followers was like, I said to them, like, you're obviously triggered. The stupidest, like, all the stupidest things always make these people like come for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Whenever you share your life on social media, everyone is tough on the internet. They wouldn't say it to your face. But, I said to this person, like, that's on you. Like, you're triggered. And they were actually triggered again for me saying that. But, when you have people like that, I think let's just say this, Athina, in all my 36 years of life, and I think that my mentor, who's going to be 60 this year, that Marty would agree, I think most pain comes from us thinking that we can change people. And so as much as at 20 years old, you're like, that's fucking terrifying. Like, thinking about, and we're not calling out any of your friends. I think you have a great circle around you.
No, this is not in reference to anyone specific. No, this is just me in general thinking.
If it was, bitch, if you ever hurt my sister, we would be calling you out by name, and it would not be like, oh, let's talk figuratively, just so everyone here knows. But
yeah.
So you have a great squad, but most of my pain as an adult, and this will happen for you as well, and it will happen for people older, and when you look back, comes from us thinking that we can change people. It's so, like you say, it's scary and sad. It's so sad. It's so freaking sad, because you have to think about the prison you must be living in that you can't be happy for someone.
Yeah.
And I think that that's such an insecure place to live, and it's just like pathetic. And I don't know. I had the most friends and the biggest family and extended family when I was the worst version of myself. Just let that sink in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know it, and I know that's true. And I think that's when I think about like creating a life for myself that I want to like be proud of. Like I love people and I love friends and I love the people around me. So I want to have people be a part of that. But at the same
Yeah.
time, you have to be real and you
Mm-hmm.
have to realize that at the end of the day, like not everyone is that type of person that can genuinely be happy for you and authentically. And I think it is sad. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think having quality friends, and I'm okay with that. Like I've never been the person that's had like a friend group of 25 people. Like it's just not me and I don't care for
Yeah.
that. I think it's like just not for me. Some of my friends are like that and it's fun and great, but for me personally, like I don't have the energy or time for that, so I don't
Yeah.
really care. And I'm very big on having quality friends. Like my whole life growing up, I pretty much had one best friend who's still my best friend to this day. Daphne, if you're listening. And
We
then
love you,
we
Daphne.
love you. Like she's my literal home slice. Love her for life. And she's like literally the only person from my childhood that I still talk to. But I
Right.
think she's been very consistent. But I feel like you go through that ebb and flow of like your middle school friends and your high school friends and all that. And then when you go to school, and I think it just looking back, you don't keep like you probably don't even talk to anyone you went to school with. So it's like very like you kind of like you're thinking they kind of get
Well,
they kind of get strained out through life, and people move, people do different things
yeah.
and you don't talk to them anymore. But I think that it's just so hard to find quality authentic people that you enjoy spending time with, that respect your boundaries, that are genuinely
Mm.
happy for you,
Mm-hmm.
that have the same work ethic as you. Like that's a really important quality to me when I'm finding friends and meeting people, is like if you're a lazy piece of trash, I most likely do not want to hang around you. And it's nothing
Yeah,
against you.
they're gonna leech on to you and
Exactly.
try to use your success and your abilities to make their bank account bigger. And that's something that had happened to me.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting, but it comes with
Terrifying. And
success.
just, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, because I think, and these two things kind of go hand in hand, but I want to ask
Yeah,
you, because obviously I feel like both of us have more of that like spontaneous personality type where we can just like
definitely.
be
Yeah.
like F it and
We're a
jump into
different
things.
breed.
But
We're a different breed.
for people that are more of that like type A, everything in their life is organized, everything's planned, which is nothing wrong. I actually wish I was probably more like that in some aspects, but unfortunately my brain is just wired different. But for people that are like that, what would you say to them? Because I'm thinking of people like, let's say in my life, that are very, they have this like, 2-year plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan. So what would you say? Like, do you believe in your case, like, is there such a thing as right timing? Is there such a thing as, no, I don't think this is the right time for that? Or do you think that's just something we tell ourselves to just say no to
Stay
something?
safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's bullshit. I
Okay.
think I'm calling that out. Unpopular opinion. It's not the right time. There's never a fucking right time. Ever. It's
Yeah.
never going to be the right time to have a family. It's never going to be the right time to take that crazy job opportunity. It's never going to be the right time to quit the job that you hate. It's never going to be
Drop
the
out
right
of
time.
college.
Yeah, it's never going to be the right time to follow your passions. It's never going to be the right time to go skydiving. It's never going to be like, that's all bullshit. Like that doesn't exist. You make it the right time. If the opportunity presents itself, mind you, you just, preface this by saying like, we're the wild ones. We absolutely are. And I think that you need the spontaneous gypsies like Athina and Jackie, but at the same time, there's never a right time. There's never a right time. And I think that when God or the universe or whatever your spiritual belief is, because there's a higher power involved here in life, okay? And there's certain opportunities that if you don't take them, do you want to sit with that? But I can't live with that regret. And that's what
Yeah.
Sean and I, I mean, he could barely get through the freaking job interview, which if my mentor is listening to this, because she's Sean's boss, he literally couldn't even get through the job interview because it was so freaking scary. It was so scary because he was just like, my husband has literally worked the same job since he was out of the womb. It was a family business that he was groomed his whole life and loved up and until the point that his dad passed away. And so like if Sean has so much talent and abilities, like he could have made triple what he was making at the slave shop, I called it, for his family. Sorry, not sorry. And make sure you leave that in there. I'm talking about you guys. He could have gone and worked at Myrtle Beach Chevrolet. He could have went and worked at wherever. And his same exact position had better benefits, no bullshit, and he could clock out and leave it there. But he is loyal as fuck. And he, to a certain point, like what we went through, he felt like he was doing something for his dad. I'm like, babe, he's not here anymore. And you're miserable. Like his light, the light I talk about in all of us, our soul, it was like gone. It was gone. He was dead inside. Dead. And I'm his person. And I carried that for this whole time. Like if you don't think I wanted to go in some places and beat the living out of some people, but I had to get to a place because I had to protect my sons from this shittery. And so I went straight numb. And so then what started to happen is he was separating his miserable existence at that shop from me because he knew that like I was trying to protect the Cubs from the family bullshit. And so, I know this is going left field, but it's like part of our decision was he had to get the fuck out of that family business. We not only took this opportunity, it was like September 29th. We had to be here by December 1st. So we had October and November to sell a 3,000 square foot house, vehicles, uproot our entire existence that we built for 15 years in South Carolina, give his 2 weeks notice, and pack up and get rid of everything. We literally had 60 days.
At the end of the day, the decision you made, yes, it was hard, but it was a no-brainer. Like you knew what had to be done. To me, in my brain, I think like for all of you that are scared of the risk of taking certain decisions, aren't you scared of what happens if you don't? Like, don't you have a fear of looking back and being like, what if? Like that to me is an even bigger fear than risk. Like risk is just how you grow in life, and risk is how you fall down and you learn and you just advance yourself as a human being. Like, don't you have a fear of looking back and regretting that you didn't take something, or what would my life have been if I did this, or what could have been different? Would I have been in a better place now? Like, doesn't that scare you even more? Because to me, that is even more scary. Like, the last feeling I want to feel when I'm on my deathbed is like, I wonder what would have happened if I did this. Like, I think that's terrifying. So thinking back on that transition period of a few months from picking up, deciding to sell everything and moving, what do you feel like was the emotional, psychological transition for you? Was there a certain moment of relief? Was it, how were you feeling up there,
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things that happened for me immediately is we only had 60 days. So I went into this straight up primal protective mode. And it was like I didn't exist. I almost like went blank up here and in here. And it was like literally all I was doing was trying to make sure that the 4 boys were good and Sean was good, because we were never supposed to leave Myrtle Beach. My husband was supposed to take over the family business. Like the pain that came with this was more than we can even bear to talk about.
Yeah. Like that home was your forever home. Like it,
so
handprints in the driveway, height markers on the wall, like that was your forever home.
Yeah. And that was so painful. It was so painful. And I had to keep it together for my sons. And so that's the part of being in your 20s and being able to be wild and free that, you know, we opened up with, is like that toll that it took on me. I am still dealing with it right now because I didn't allow myself to feel in that period of time. And I just needed to be strong for everyone. I had to be strong for Sean. I had to be strong for the boys. I had to put on a brave face. So I would cry in my pillow and I would go in the shower. I sit in the shower, by the way, and I would just bawl my eyes out. And I didn't share this part of it with anyone because I didn't feel safe, because I started feeling friends turn enemies and family talk about our move and, you know, disrespect this decision. And I literally went reclusive
Like
inside and
almost in like
inward.
survival mode.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And so, you know, be prepared for that. Be prepared for that part of it. And, you know, I don't ask for help ever.
Yeah.
It's a little pride thing I got going on. And I'm going to get emotional, but like
It's
Athena,
okay.
when I said to you, like, I need you.
Guys,
Like,
I laugh when people cry.
She's terrible. But when I said I needed you and you were like, you know,
I'm there.
She's 19 years old. We had been through a lot of, you know, sister shit in that like 18 months leading up to it because of narcissist bitches in my life, which I still take responsibility. And like Sean and I were going through trials. But when I said to you, like, I need you, and you literally were like, I'm just book the flight. Like, I'm there. Like, when I tell you what that meant to me as my sister, and I was in that primal state and that like survival mode, but like I don't know. I don't have words to describe to you what that meant to me, and I needed you. I still need you, but like I didn't even know how much I needed you. Athena flies in at 11 p.m. She worked all day. And Sean goes and gets her from the airport. And the next day we had to wake up at like 4 a.m. And that was when the podcast was born because we talked for 19 hours in the car. It should have taken us like 13 and it took us 19.
Mm-hmm.
So excuse me for that whole crying tangent, but I just want to tell you guys that when you have people like that in your life, and it might not be that you have an actual biological sister best friend like Athena and I, but like people like that, you hold them close and you protect them and you keep them in your life.
Yeah, and that's why we're so big on quality relationships, because everyone is going to have those time periods or those moments of their life where they need that support. And that's why, as someone who's 20, it's so important to surround yourself with people that are so authentic, because when you need that extra, 20% from someone else to just help you and uplift you and get you through something, like you need that. And it's really hard to go through things alone. Like even if you're, an introverted, you like to be secluded person, like it's important to have people that you can count on genuinely and trust and have with you at those times. So I think that's why even people that have 1,001 friends doesn't mean anything, because who are you calling? Who are you texting? Who are you relying on when you have a situation that you need to be supported? And that's why it's so important to surround yourself with that.
I agree so much. But like there was so many moments, like a year later tomorrow, I still wake up and I look outside and I'm like, this didn't happen. So
yeah,
I'll let you know. I'll let you know when it really sinks in. I gave myself 1 year. I allowed myself to have a year, and then I didn't realize I was going to be like going through all I went through when we got here business wise and everything. But like now that we're at that year mark, I can tell you that when I get on Route 1 and I look at the ocean on both sides, it looks like I'm in the Bahamas. I feel like I'm home. I can tell you that our boys are thriving. I can tell you that I've never been closer to my husband. I can tell you that I pinch myself every single freaking day that we did this. I am so thankful that we did it. Despite everything, I know that this is going to elevate us not only physically, spiritually, mentally. It already has.
That's why I'm so big on mindset and the words you say. I think people aren't mindful enough about how important the words you speak are. And I know that some people, like, if you guys sat down with us and heard the things that we talk about and discuss of like where we want to be in certain aspects of our life, you'd be like, you guys are literally like batshit insane. Like, what are you
delusional.
what are you talking
They're
about?
Delulu.
Delusion. But you guys, there's so many areas of my life that I genuinely could not have even, like, I never thought I would have a moment of like, is this my real life? And when that slowly starts to become reality, like, I can't even describe into words what that feels like. So
yeah,
I think
yeah,
if you are at a place of your life that you feel stuck, or you just don't feel inspired, or you don't feel like you even enjoy or love or are passionate about what you're doing, like, you have to change something. Because when you have that mindset of the only outcome is that I have to make it, that's the only thing that will happen.
yep,
That's just how the world works. It's in my 20 short years of life, it's what I've learned, is that that is
so
when
true.
you only give yourself one option. That's it. There's no other outcomes, there's no other possibilities.
No plan B. There's no plan B.
There's no plan B. And I will always say this about myself and about like Joey, me, like, our plan A is ourselves and believing in ourselves, and that's the only plan there is. There's no other option. So I think people are so scared of making certain decisions in life, and you just have to genuinely speak them into existence, talk about them, find someone that you can have these conversations with. Because I think the issue is that a lot of people feel stupid or cringy or dumb if they talk about things that they want to do in their life. You are not surrounding yourself with the right people. The sun is in my mouth.
That's a cage. That's a cage, sis.
So if you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so cringy, like all my friends are going to think I'm weird for wanting this, this, and this, you are not surrounding yourself with the right people. So find people that you can genuinely talk about your goals, your future, all these things with, and find people that get it. Because when you do that, you will feel this sense of relief. Like, when I have certain people in my life that I know, like you, we could sit and talk for hours. I mean, we did. And it is such a relief. And I feel bad for people that don't have that in their life, because you can only bring yourself so far without having inspiration and you know,
collaboration
and community and networking. Like, you need to have that. So I think throughout this whole episode, what I want to tell people my age, and I know that people know that and people tell themselves, but you have no one else to blame when you are not at that place that you want to be. So I just want people to feel like you do have it in you, and there's nothing to be scared of. Like, failure and falling on your face, if you tell yourself that it's not an option and that your only option is to succeed, that's what's going to happen. And that's the place that you'll be at. So that's what I kind of have to say. And I really, like, I try to help as many people as I can that I know in my own life when they're kind of at that crossroads of like, I don't know what to do. Like, I mean, I literally convinced Joey to drop out of college. I was like, why? Like, why? Why? Like it doesn't make sense for your life. Yeah, that's what I mean when I say I'm your parents' worst nightmare as a friend, because I've seen people that are just in a space where they don't feel happy and they don't feel like themselves, and it makes me sad, because I think that now is the time to do those scary things, and it will pay off so much in the future.
I actually want to ask you, did our move as a 19, now 20-year-old sister, what did it inspire you in your life? Like, watching us do this, because you know everything about it. Like, was there a time where you were like, oh shit, I can't do that, that's crazy? Or was it always inspiration for you?
I think it was always like, I think it was always inspiration. Like, I really do. I think like I think it's also because I know the inside workings of exactly what Sean was going through, which I know Sean is going to talk about to, you know, you guys can hear his perspective on it. And I think that it's because I've been in it and I knew. And so when you told me that, it didn't surprise me. I was genuinely just so happy. I think it did inspire me because I thought to myself, like, if she can do it, then I don't, like, no one else has an excuse not to. Like, she is in, you know, you're literally in the most stable part of your life that you've ever lived, of your 30, literally, however old you were, 34 years, you were in the most stable part of it. So the fact that you were able to uproot yourself and move and jump literally straight into like a free fall off a cliff and just have faith because you just had to make it work, I think is super inspiring. And having someone so close to me do something like that, how is it not going to inspire me? How can I just sit there and be like, well, I'm just going to keep living my life and just another day?
I think in a closing for my listeners and people more in my age demographic, I want to say, what if it can turn out better than you can imagine? What if on the other side of that fear, on the other side of that stable or so-called American dream cul-de-sac that Sean and I had, what if on the other side of that fear, the fear of what others might say, the fear of what your parents might say, the fear of what your employer, your dad, your social media, on the other side of that is growth, and it turns out better than you could imagine. And so I am the wild one in the relationship. Sean is the safe guy. And so we balance each other out perfectly. And I'm so thankful to God for him and how he balances out my crazy. But I couldn't have done this without him. There's times during this year, the same way I cried on this podcast with you, how you had my back and how thankful I am for our sisterhood and just you being there within 24 hours for me to drive down with your nephews. And she literally left like 2 days later. If Sean hopefully is listening, he better be listening. My biggest fan. Like, I love you, and I couldn't have done this with anyone else but him. Like, there's no mistake there. So that's all. What if it can turn out better than you can imagine? And shake it up. Don't be afraid to shake it up. And that's it. That's all I got.
Your best life is on the other side of you being uncomfortable and you taking a risk. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah. I love you and all that light on your face.
I can't. I'm like, I look like a ghost when I go in some of the light. Guys, it's literally it's literally 1:30 and the sun's setting. Okay. I live in Alaska, apparently. Like, it's literally like 1. It was 1 and the sun started going down.
I want to thank you guys for coming into my heart on this episode, and so many messages of people, even people that are in my mentorship right now, just thanking me because our funny episode on trauma and family stuff. Like, I want to thank you guys for coming in to our souls and our hearts. And I'm so excited for next year, the next season, and all the amazing announcements that we have coming are going to be epic. You guys are not even ready for this. And share more of your stories. I know that on Spotify you can like reply to us, but like on our sister's Instagram page, on our personal ones, like reach out to us because we love to hear from you. If there's ever a topic that you want to hear us talk about, especially for next year, just let us know.
Yes. Our DMs are always open, you guys. Our messages, our comments, everything. We will answer you and we want to hear from you. And I literally love whoever I know that listens to this. Like, I'm always asking, like, what do you like about it? Like, your thoughts. Like, I always want to know. And I feel like the season's coming to an end and we're kind of like just now figuring out like a mojo. Yeah. So our next season's going to be even better. With us.
So you are more resilient than you know.
We love you all.
Mwah.